Hello, and welcome back to your South King County Real Estate Update. This is a very special episode of South King County Real Estate Update because it is our end of year recap of last year, predictions for the next year. So, this is our 2025 recap, 2025 predictions episode. It's my favorite episode of the year. It tends to be a little bit longer, so I'm going to go ahead and jump right on into it. This is your South King County Real Estate Update, housing market update for 2025 recap, 2026 predictions. Starting off with our 2025 recap, home price activity was relatively flat in most areas in the Puget Sound region over the course of the year. There was some ups and some downs, but generally we are not too far off where we started. Condos and homes have been experiencing a very different market. As far as the number of home sales, we have come down a little bit in several areas. We're actually ahead in Southwest King, and condos have been struggling a little bit more. Does look like they had less of impact here in South King County. Both condo sales for Southwest and Southeast King are ahead of where they were last year. And I'm breezing through this because this was covered in our December update. So I'm just going to breeze right through this because there's a lot to get through. As far as prices in Seattle, we're pretty close to where we were last year in November. The December numbers haven't come out yet because it is not January yet. Summer's not quite over. And in Southwest King County, prices did increase slightly. Southeast King County prices decreased overall slightly. For condos, Southwest King is slightly behind where we were last year on price and right about even where we were in Southeast King County. New listings from 1 year ago, Kent is up 27%, Renton up 24%, Auburn up just 3% for the new listings coming to market. And Federal Way is actually down 26.5%. And number of homes for sale. So this is new listings coming to the market plus what's been sitting on the market for more than a month. Kent up 21%, Renton up 32%, Auburn up 18%, and Federal Way is exactly flat. Pending sales from 1 year ago, Renton did decrease by about 13% or so. The other areas have increased in the number of pending sales in November compared to 1 year ago. And median days on market, you can see the cycle here. We have low days on market in the spring and summer, and that increases all the way till January. And then the market picks up and things sell a little bit quicker heading towards the spring market. So that is exactly what I expect to see this year. So we're heading up to our peak of most days on market of the year. And then as we hit January, February, things will sell a little bit quicker. Median sales price, Kent did come up 4% since 1 year ago. Renton came down almost 8% from 1 year ago. Auburn down just over 2%, and Federal Way down 6.6%. As far as mortgage rates, for our weekly average mortgage rate, it is 6.18 for this week. And there are several things that influence mortgage rates. They have been above 6%. It actually topped over 7% earlier this year and have been kind of easing down since then with some fluctuations. But the mortgage rates are influenced by several factors, from the Federal Reserve's interest rate policy decisions to bond market investors' expectations for the economy and inflation. Generally, they follow the trajectory of the 10-year Treasury yield, which lenders use as a guide for pricing home loans. Mortgage rates began easing in July in anticipation of a series of Fed rate cuts, which began in September and continued this month. The Fed doesn't set mortgage rates, but when it cuts its short-term rate, that can signal lower inflation or slower economic growth ahead, which can drive investors to buy U.S. government bonds. That can help lower yields on long-term U.S. Treasuries, which can result in lower mortgage rates. Home shoppers who can afford to pay cash or finance at the current mortgage rates are in a more favorable position than they were 1 year ago. Home listings are up sharply from last year, and many sellers have resorted to lowering their initial asking price as homes take longer to sell. Still, affordability remains a challenge for aspiring homeowners, especially first-time home buyers who don't have the equity from an existing home to put towards a new home purchase. Uncertainty over the economy and job market are also keeping many would-be buyers on the sidelines. And for our daily interest rate, we're at 6.2. And if we look back over the past year, we started up close to 7 and then came down into April, and then it came up again. And we've been generally trending down ever since then. For inflation, consumer price inflation is moderating, shelter costs decelerating. The latest data shows moderating consumer price inflation largely thanks to rapidly decelerating housing and shelter costs. Overall, consumer prices rose by 2.7%, still above the target comfort rate of 2%. Normally, the Federal Reserve would wait until inflation is near the target before cutting interest rates. However, it has cut the short-term rate 3 times since September due to the softening labor market. Despite the tariffs' inflationary impact, the biggest weight in the measurement comes from housing and shelter. People spend around 30% of their budget on housing, which is actually up. It is higher than that on average right now, but it is a significant share of the CPI measurement. Shelter costs rose by 3% from 1 year ago, marking the slowest rise in over 4 years. Also, home insurance costs have risen by 7% in the past year. This rise explains why condominium sales have been lagging behind single-family home sales despite lower condo prices. If the inflation rate continues to improve, the Federal Reserve can make additional rate cuts. Further, the 10-year Treasury yield and consequently mortgage rates can also decline. Here's the consumer price inflation at 2.7 in November. So the red line is what we are shooting for. That is the 2% target. So we are still above that, but not nearly as significantly as we were a couple years ago. And housing shelter costs rising at 3%, decelerating. Renters are in blue and owners is in red. So these are the housing costs, and we are on this downward trend. Wage rate rising at 3.5%, which is the blue, faster than consumer prices at 2.7%, which is in red. So wages are increasing faster than our consumer prices are, making things more affordable. So a couple quotes here. Affordability for home buyers reached a 3-year high, and that is from Zillow. And Mark Fleming, chief economist at First American, said affordability should continue to improve, allowing more households to unlock the homeownership door and start the equity building journey that turns a house into a wealth generating asset. So that is our 2025 recap and into our 2026 forecast. 5 projections for the Seattle real estate market in 2026 from the Seattle Times. The Seattle area market is at a turning point. The 2025 slow housing market is likely to flatten prices and push home sales up in 2026, providing mixed relief for buyers who have watched home prices climb since the pandemic and sellers who have been waiting to find the right moment to make their move. The shift is subtle, however, as the same struggles bogging down the real estate market will likely continue into next year. Here are 5 expert projections for the Seattle area real estate market in 2026. First, home prices to slow, sales to pick up. While prices likely won't plunge, they will largely remain flat. There's few different projections. Zillow, Redfin, and Bright MLS think it'll rise about 1%. National Association of Realtors sees about a 4% rise. High interest rates, sweeping layoffs, and economic uncertainty made buyers cautious, leaving the region with more homes for sale than usual and some listings lingering. Home sales were down slightly through the first 11 months of 2025 compared to the same period in 2024. However, stronger spring will nudge sales higher next year, economists predict. Slightly lower mortgage rates could propel buyers into the market. Sellers will see a good surge of buyers coming out of the woodwork in the spring. That is a major change from this year when President Donald Trump's announcement about massive tariffs sent shockwaves through the economy in April, tempering the housing market at the start of the usual spring boost. So, as far as home price forecasts heading forward, the average of all of these projections is 1.7%. So, pretty modest as far as home prices are concerned. There's not really anybody who's projecting that things are going to decrease over the course of the year. They'll hold steady or increase just slightly. The number of home sales is also expected to rise, which it rose this year and will continue to rise on that trend into next year. Second projection, mortgage rates to drop to 6%. We're at 6.2 right now. Generally, economists are projecting that rates will inch lower over the next year, a small relief to buyers who saw the average 30-year mortgage loan rate of 6.6 in 2025 and 6.7 in 2024. So it'll be about 0.6, 0.7% lower on average throughout the year than it was the past couple of years. So they're expecting rates to hover around 6%. And mortgage rates have fallen to around 6.2 since October from some of their lowest levels in a year after spiking just above 7% in January. But that didn't seem to rejuvenate buying activity. Some may be holding out for rates to drop further. More buyers could enter the market as they accept that rates aren't going to significantly drop anytime soon. So as far as mortgage rate projections, here's a few. Realtor.com thinks 6.3% as the average mortgage rate for next year. National Association of Realtors is at 6%, Fannie Mae 5.9%, and Redfin is also 6.3% for their projection. So here's where we've been for the past couple of years and where they think we are planning on going. This is Fannie Mae, MBA, and Wells Fargo forecasts. Number 3, rents will increase, but slower than usual. This year, rent increases have slowed significantly, a trend that's likely to continue into 2026. The average rent increases were uneven across the Puget Sound rental market, which averages about $2,000 a month, according to the Washington Center for Real Estate Research. In Seattle, the average rents barely changed from a year ago, while they rose as much as 5% in Bellevue, Kirkland, and Everett. And places like Federal Way, Kent, Redmond, and Renton, the average rents dropped by as much as 7.6%. So this is all very localized as far as what's happening in the rental market. Combining all those cities together makes the Seattle rental market appear flat. And this is for King, Pierce, and Snohomish counties. On average, between 2015 and 2022, rents rose an average of 4.2% year over year. Since then, rents have calmed significantly due to an influx of new apartment buildings. Average rents in Seattle actually dipped slightly month over month in the last half of 2025. This was also the first year of Washington's new law limiting rent increases to 7% plus inflation or 10%, whichever is lower. The hard cap of 10% this year prevented excessive rent increases in the second half of 2025. In 2024, the completed apartment construction in Seattle hit a 7-year high. So there was a great influx of apartments that were available. But that looks like it might be decreasing from here. Multifamily construction is slowing down in Seattle as the cost of building reaches new heights. Apartment permitting in Seattle is down 43% from a year ago, and construction loan rates have roughly doubled since 2021. Rent increases will pick up after 2026 as new apartments are absorbed and vacancy rates diminish. And overall, homeowners gain wealth over time, renters lose it. This is going back several years. So blue is if you bought in 2006 and your equity gain over time. Orange is bought in 2015. So you can see homeowners have increased in wealth over time and renters have decreased in wealth over time. The fourth prediction is office market to improve. So as the work from home stuff is kind of ending, more people are being called back into office and no longer allowed to do remote work. There are more offices that will be filled throughout this year. Office space leasing in the Seattle area is nowhere near its levels from before the pandemic. Demand strengthened throughout 2025. In 2026, the AI boom is expected to bring more people into office spaces in Seattle, but incoming tech firms won't cause a bump in commercial construction. Instead, most investors are putting their money into older buildings that they can modernize. And the fifth projection, incomes will finally rise faster than home prices. Since the Great Recession, incomes have been rising slower than home prices, and that has started to turn around. Wages are increasing faster than the home prices are. Buyers have retreated from the market as mortgage rates doubled between 2021 and 2025, the fastest increase in 50 years. Although buyers may have more cash in their pockets next year, housing costs will still be out of reach for many. But for some people, this will be able to tip the scales of them getting back into shopping for a home. A lot of people got priced out in 2022 and 2023. The fact that 2026 is going to be a little bit better than 2025 doesn't necessarily change the math for them. But over time, this trend will help a lot of people. The Housing Affordability Index is up at 106.2. And this is a number that is a math equation that combines incomes, mortgage rates, and housing prices. So the higher the number is, the more affordable housing is for more people. In June, we hit a low point for the year, and things have been becoming more affordable since then. As far as the housing affordability forecast, this is a slightly different number. This is the percent of income spent on mortgage payments. They're projecting that people will have to spend less of a percentage of their income to get into a home. This is from Redfin, year-over-year change in median sale price of existing homes and year-over-year change in wages for American workers. This is where we are right about now, is 2025. Heading forward through this year, they expect to see wage growth greatly outpace the home price growth. We'll wrap it up a little bit with some quotes here. From the chief economist at Zillow, buyers are benefiting from more inventory and improved affordability, while sellers are seeing price stability and more consistent demand. Each group should have a bit more breathing room in 2026. And then another quote from Mark Fleming, the chief economist at First American. For the first time in several years, the underlying forces are finally aligned towards gradual improvement. Mortgage rates may drift down only slowly, but income growth exceeding house price appreciation will provide a boost to home buying power. Even in a higher rate world, affordability won't snap back overnight, but like a ship finally catching a steady tailwind, it's now sailing in the right direction. This one's from the National Association of Realtors. Top economists have one word to sum up the housing market for 2026: opportunity. Lower mortgage rates and a rising supply of homes are expected to open up the housing market, something the real estate industry and potential home buyers and sellers have been waiting for following 3 years of stagnation. And that is the 2026 forecast. So it looks like things are going to be stabilizing and getting to be a more balanced market with more options for buyers, stabilized pricing for sellers, and most sellers are also buying a home, so making that transition easier for them as well. Just a reminder, if you are thinking about making a move in the coming year, please reach out. Winter buyer and seller guides are available, as well as a first-time home buyer guide. If you would like one of these, I can send one over to you. It's got a lot of great information in them, and highly recommend that you get one of these and take a peek at it. It's totally free. Just let me know how I can get it to you. And if you have questions, please feel free to reach out. I would like to wish you all a very happy new year. Happy 2026. This year is going to be great. The housing market looks like it has benefits to offer both sellers and buyers, which is kind of a rarity to have it be great for both sides. Heading back with that trend towards better affordability, more options, making it easier for sellers to choose a home to move to and then have their home come up for sale for a new buyer. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you'll join me next year for more of these housing updates. It has been a wild year. And I am so glad that we'll get a little bit more of that stability heading forward into 2026 as far as the housing market is concerned. I hope you had a fabulous, safe, and happy holiday with friends and family, and that you have much luck and joy coming to you in 2026. Thank you so much for joining me. My name's Sarah Eggleston with Stone Egg Realty at Berkshire Hathaway, and I will be back here with your local updates next year. Have a good one.